All right, first of all, thank you for all spending your time in a very interesting and hot environment in San Francisco today. I'm from London, so I'm not usually accustomed to this type of weather, so it was a little bit of a treat when I landed. I think it might make sense just to give you a little bit of background about myself, also our organization, and how we believe that AI will have an impact on the world of work. So a few years ago, 12 years ago, I was working with an organization, an American-based company, Career Builder. And we used to really focus on looking at how we can help people find jobs online, through online advertising and media and so on. And we also acquired a natural language processing organization called TextKernel that was focused really on understanding the intent for the user, but also what somebody had meant when they were writing a job description. So that was my initial experience with AI, and we consult with multiple organizations globally, and then moved to the Adecco Group to really help them transform and innovate within their business. And we created a division called Adecco Group X. And just to give you a bit of history about the Adecco Group, it's an organization which is headquartered out of Switzerland. We're in 64 countries. We are, in fact, the largest recruitment company in the world globally, top line around 23 billion in revenue. And we place 1.3 million people to work every single day. So the great thing about that is we learn a lot about the process of work and how people get to work, the challenges that they face, but also we ingest a lot of information and a lot of data. And there's a huge opportunity for us to leverage that very domain-specific data within the world of work. I'll talk you through some of the people that we come across within the world of work on a consistent basis. So we'll start with 3 characters. So if we take a look at Sawyerr, who, from a persona perspective, has done a graduate degree at Harvard. She spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of investment. Her parents had told her that you must go ahead and be a lawyer. And she's now running a general counsel practice within an organization to help protect the assets of an organization. You've also then got John, who's now in a situation where he is meant to be partnering with business units and giving them strategic advice on the types of things that you need to do with your people in order to lead in any particular industry. So an example would be that he'll go to the operations business leader and he should be providing strategic advice. And then there's Dan, who's on the production line. And Dan is really there to ensure that the production line is really efficient, the process is fully optimized, and he is producing at the most optimal pace for his organization. This is a challenge. Many of the characters that we talk about and we see every single day are faced with a dilemma. They signed up for a particular job, but they're stuck in delivery mode. So it should have been a strategic position, but they're now stuck and focused on transactions. I'd like to see just a show of hands if anybody in this room has ever hired anybody. Okay? Has anybody in this room who's ever hired and continued to hire throughout their process had a 100% hit rate where the people that they had hired were totally satisfied with their job and never, ever, ever left? Okay, a little bit different. So I think that one of the main things I want to talk about today is how can we unlock that talent that individuals have, leveraging artificial intelligence and leveraging technology. So we'll start with three main areas which we'll discuss, and one will be around the hiring process, so getting people into the world of work. The other will be, what do you do once you actually get there now? And then finally, what skills are required in this new world of work? It's very interesting when we look at artificial intelligence from a service perspective, and we're absolutely at the height of the hype cycle, according to Gartner. But we see it in our business as well. So when we look at deep learning, natural language processing, there's huge visibility on it. They're buzzwords that come up every single day within our industry. And to be quite frank, unlike many of you in this audience today, there's not too many who know about deep learning or AI within the recruitment industry, so there's a huge opportunity. But I think the main thing is that there's about 2 to 5 years what we see within the world of work where the maturity levels are correct that you can then start to leverage AI, leverage machine learning at mass scale. And if we now start to go into some of the use cases and think a little bit around what could the future hold in the next 2 to 5 years, it should give you more of an insight into how we see the world of work developing and also what we're leveraging today. So I'll provide a few use cases to give you some examples, and we'll meet Sarah, John, and Dan again. So as we step into it, John is a HR professional, and he's now in a position where he needs to really strategically plan how he's going to bring people into his organization. And logically speaking, that should start with workforce planning. So within the Adecco group, we've taken some models on the data where we place the 1.3 million people every single day. We take external labor market data. We take government statistics. We then put predictive algorithms on top to give organizations the ability to predict the workforce they may need before that actually comes up. So then giving John the ability to have a clear picture and an understanding of what he needs before he writes that job description. So if we think about AI really feeding the internal organization, so you're gaining insights from the market and then feeding those into your company. And in the end, what we see is an opportunity for one-click recruitment. If I go into a little bit more detail on how that looks specifically, so John has some very specific modules that are recommended to him by an AI. They give him the understanding of the labor market, they give him the understanding of the pay rates, and he can then start to steer those modules. This is where we see it going in the next 2 to 5 years. Real practically today, we're leveraging artificial intelligence to help Dan find a job. Because I don't know how many of you in this room have tried to apply for a job recently, but the experience is pretty horrible. So we're enabling Dan to apply for a job online, leveraging a chatbot. Once he applies for that job, that chatbot gets to know him, understands him, but then also, if Dan is certified, checked, and has gone through our process before, we can actually put Dan out to work straight away. An example would be that we're using this in a big retail organization for ramp period, where we hired 40,000 people through AI. So there are huge opportunities, not only from John's perspective to change the way that he hires, but also Dan's perspective to give him a better user experience. So the other questions that may come up will be, That's great. I've got into the door, but does my job actually even exist anymore? Or what does my job look like now? How is that changing? How is that progressing and developing? And what we really see is we see a mix and a blend between those individuals that were meant to do one job, so the job description that you received when you started your role, and them leveraging an ecosystem that is centered around AI. So you'll need trainers to train the AI and train the models. You'll need the content moderators to make sure that what's going into the AI is ethical. And you'll need change agents to really change the decisions and the view and the culture of an organization. So now we see Sawyerr, if we go back to Sawyerr being a head of legal, instead of her spending time sifting through countless documents, she can spend time being more creative. Dan on the production line can spend time being more creative. So really taking them out of a transactional mode. And that's a direction that we see in the way we see the world of work evolving. Our industry, so we're about 23 billion in revenue. Our industry is about 300 billion in temporary work and flexible work. But when you go into the freelance area, by 2025, it will be a $1 trillion industry. And we see flexible work playing a key component as a hybrid between flexible work and also artificial intelligence. So John's role has evolved slightly. He was put in HR. I don't know how many of you work or deal with HR, but he was put in HR to advise on a career. I think that Dan might be better off doing his own personal development. So John's role then changes slightly tomorrow to only get involved in critical issues. Because from Dan's perspective, he wants not only to be a production supervisor, and we see this in our business every day, but he may want to move into a different role. He may want to get specific qualifications. And if you can have a career-assisted advisor over a 10-year period, we think the opportunities could be endless for the roles and positions that you want to go in. And not only going into roles based on your historical experience, but based on your competencies, traits, and the opportunities that you would like to take moving forward. Big statement. We've done some research within our Adecco Group X Lab, and this is the big statement that's come up. 47% of jobs in the US are at risk of being replaced by AI and computer technologies. And maybe they are in the next 10, 20 years. But I think the fact of the matter is no one really knows. But what we do know in the medium term, short medium term, is that 9% of jobs are at risk of really being replaced, and the rest are going to be amplified for a period of time. And why are they going to be amplified for that period of time? Mainly because it's going to take time to train the models. It's going to take time for organizations, especially enterprise organizations, to train their people internally and transform their cultures. So we really look at a midterm approach versus long-term, but who knows? Now, if we take a look at some of the real specific positions, the jobs that, or should I say tasks, that we believe will be replaced by AI, I believe the tasks that will be replaced by AI and are being replaced are highly predictable, highly repetitive, and high frequency. So if you were doing a job yesterday and you come into work the next day and 50% of what you've done yesterday is the same as tomorrow, you're quite likely your job might not exist. or the tasks may not exist. But with that, again, there's a huge opportunity. We also believe that there's a wide variety of roles, obviously, in customer service, and that's been one of the first industries that we see that have started to take up AI. And in the midterm, customer service should improve for everybody, and it should amplify those roles. Of course, there'll be some roles that no longer exist, but across the board, the value of that human touch, the value of speaking to somebody should increase. And then later down the line, there are more specialist roles and specialist positions that are a little bit more risk than others. So what are going to be the key skills for individuals and human beings? We believe in the world of work, spending a lot of time with individuals, looking at processes and looking at all of the areas that we can automate, all of the areas where we can apply AI. We really believe that critical thinking, an example, solving big, complex sales processes where you need somebody on hand to deal with 10 million of sales, you want to speak to somebody, will continue to thrive. Also, empathy, understanding, and taking that human intuition and combining that with AI, as well as creativity. So we need someone to train the models, and we need people to think and solve complex solutions and complex problems. Some of the requirements that are necessary in order to execute on that vision are around education. We can't educate people quick enough around AI, so I'm glad that we're all here today sharing, teaching, learning. The other areas are around change management. So once you've educated, can you change the culture and the structure and bring people along the journey to execute on that vision? And we believe that some of these are prerequisites in order to take things to the next level. There will also be some obstacles, as we've probably all heard, and those that are very excited about AI. And some of those obstacles are around privacy, ethics, and the ethics comes with training the models. Who's actually training those models? It's generally garbage in, garbage out. So we're very thankful that we can rely on training the models with the vast amounts of data that we have and closing the feedback loop and getting feedback from individuals on whether or not somebody was successful in a particular role with those 1.2 million people that we place. So John and Sarah and also Dan are going to be facing some very different worlds. It's not only the blue-collar jobs that are at risk, it's also the white-collar jobs. But it's also the white-collar jobs and the blue-collar jobs that have the ability to be amplified. So some of the key takeaways that I'd like to give is one, if you have a recruitment process or you have a process where you want to leverage AI when it comes to hiring, constantly test, iterate, see what works. Spend time understanding where you or the people within your organization add value. And then the other parts, quite frankly, may lend well for automation. The other area is develop a clear AI strategy, and I know many of you in this room have probably already done that. But really, for me, a clear AI strategy is something that everybody can follow within your organization. Something that, if I like to do the grandma test, if you gave it to your grandma, would she really understand how it works? And then last but not least, as we're at the forefront of innovation and we're moving things in a completely different direction that didn't exist, we've got to be prepared to tackle the obstacles head on. It's not going to be easy, but we see huge opportunities in the world of work, leveraging both artificial intelligence and human intuition at the same time. Thank you.